We are at Gillham Winery Boutique Hotel here with the winemaker Lin Gold.
Hi guys.
A new generation winemaker for me. So, could you please tell us, where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in Belarus, but I was raised in Israel. I came to Israel when I was about 8 years old. So I do consider myself as Israeli. This is my stronger language. This is the language we practice at home. So
Okay, that's good. Okay, and then you choose to come to northern part of Cyprus with this investment.
At some point of my travels, yes,
absolutely.
I reached here.
So, how did your wine career started? Shortly.
As a child, I was a very artistic child. I always liked to draw and to observe and to take pictures and stuff like this. But I'm coming from a very long family of doctors and physicians. So I was kind of pushed to have a normal career that I can provide for myself based on doing something rather than being another starving artist. And so I chose to study biology as my bachelor degree. And while I was studying, I started to work and experiment, and by chance or not, depending how you look at life, I ended up in a winery, not far away where I was living, back in Israel. And in a winery I started to be as a winemaker assistant in a laboratory, which makes sense because I studied biology. But from that point, I just realized that this is the perfect profession. This is what I want to do, because it's basically incorporated the two parts of that were my passion, which is chemistry and biology, that more, thinking part of me. But it's winemaking, it's very subjective and it's very artistic job.
Absolutely.
So this profession basically combines those two together, and it was a perfect match for me, and the rest is history.
So you've been started to make a wine in Israel, I think.
I've started to practice winemaking in that winery before my education, and then I decided to pursue it in a professional way. I flew to Australia to do my master's degrees, which I finished in 2008. And since then I practiced winemaking in Australia. I've done some additional work in France, back in Israel, and then was offered this great opportunity to start a winery from scratch, which is a dream for any winemaker, to come and establish something as you see it, as your dream. So
from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Unbelievable.
So here I am.
It's really challenging, I think. So what makes your vineyard here special?
As a wine producer and wine grower, I feel it's mine, so it's already special. It's like I'll ask you, what's special about your child? It's your child, of course. It's special.
So everything comes from the heart.
Oh, of course. But on more, I guess, professional overview of your question, the wine production and grape growing started in the Mediterranean area about 6,000 years ago.
Yes.
So we're talking about natural environment, before winemakers were trained, before equipment was invented. Just, naturally grown grapes, picked, treaded with feet, and produced wonderful table, simple wines, but it was possible.
Absolutely.
So that gives me the confidence, and also the results that we're already seeing today, that Cyprus is a very good place to grow grapes, and that we can achieve a very good results in the winery with the help of the knowledge and the products, winemaking products that we can use, the progressive equipment and so on. So that vineyard basically, in a way, it's a closure for Northern Cyprus, as we are the pioneers today that replanted and revived this ancient tradition, and we are able to show in Cyprus and outside by exporting the abilities of this island, and how progressive we are and how wonderful things we can make. So that's absolutely amazing in my eyes, and I'm very excited to be part of bringing wine culture to the island.
Let me ask you, as far as I know, as a wine specialist myself, the soil is very important for the wine varietals, of course. What is the soil type here? do you think? We are on the Five Finger Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good altitude here, which gives another microclimate effect on the wines and the vineyard here, I suppose. So can you tell us about the climate and the soil?
So as you mentioned correctly, vine, as any agricultural grown product, is highly affected by the soil it's thriving in. Vineyards are grown basically all over the world except of Antarctica, which is too cold.
Absolutely.
But they and their wines will reflect what we call terroir, the local conditions of micro and meso and macro climate, the nutrition, the soil composition, how much rain we get. It's a lot of different compounds that at the end will make a specific wine very unique. That Syrah coming from Cyprus won't be the same like Syrah coming from California or coming from Australia.
It can't be the same.
It can't be. Plus, of course, we have the human factor of a winemaker and what he or she decide to do in a winery with the raw material. But being focused a bit more about Cyprus, although we are next to those hills of the Five Finger Mountain, the soil is very, very various. Even when we're going back and comparing, let's say, locations and different terroirs back in France, you know that this plot and this plot that's standing one next to each other considered to be completely different. Locations. This one will be sold 100 euros per bottle and this one will be sold 5 euros per bottle.
Absolutely.
Why? This is what they call terroir. They were smart enough to put,
definitely,
I guess, a word to it that no one understands or struggle to understand fully. In terms of our vineyard, we do see differences even with those two slopes that we're standing next by. So this one is more brown soil, more heavy soil, while this one is a bit more calcareous and lighter. The upper level of the soil is a bit more heavy, as I said, but the subsoil is more sandy. So at the end, before we planted, we actually done a soil survey on these plots, and this is how we reached the decision that it is suitable for grape growing, and we decided to plant. The advantages of this soil that it's not too rich, because grape vines need to suffer so-called in order to give really good and concentrated material. When we compare it with grapes that we just eat in the market, they are very big berries, they are very watery, very sweet and nice, but it's not what I'm looking as a winemaker. We look for nice tannins in the skins, we look for high concentration, beautiful color. So we need the vine to work for it, not just give it all the nutrition and all the water, and it's not a watermelon, it's a wine producing grape.
Absolutely. Together with it, thicker skins, basically.
Yeah. In reds at least, that's absolutely right.
Absolutely. So do you think we have the maritime climate effect on the vineyard?
Of course. So we are here elevated 210 meters above the sea level. As I mentioned, we have two slopes that help us to drain the water, the excess water during winter. We get about 450 millimeters of rain during the raining season. Luckily, unlike France, we are allowed to irrigate our vineyards because it's very hot during the summer, and we do need to assist the vine growing and grape ripening by additional water. But what this basically valley and the outlook to the sea gives us is a very nice and continuous aeration. Even now we stand and we speak, it's almost 11 I believe, but we can feel not a huge, but we can feel some breeze coming out.
Absolutely.
That breeze basically helps us to manage healthy canopy, which is healthy grape will produce, it's a basic to produce a good wine. So that constant aeration basically lowers the humidity level that we get from the sea. So in winemaking and grape growing, it's always one step back or two steps forward. You have two sides of the same coin. So the humidity level is high because of the presence of the sea, which might be a negative point for grape growing. But since we have those breezes and we carefully control the density of the canopy, we aerate the way we prune We do small leaf removal just to make sure that the vine is equally sun exposed as well as aerated to avoid these potential hazards of fungicides and things
Absolutely.
like this.
What is the wine varietals here?
So we have two different locations. One is here, the valley looking at our hotel, and another one is a plateau just behind the winery. All our vineyards are close to the winery because we are practicing boutique estate grape growing and wine production. We grow 8 different varietals. In white we have Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc. And in reds we have Grenache, which is used to produce rosé wine. And then for red wines we use Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, Petit Verdot and Cabernet Franc. We started from classical world-known varietals, I guess.
Mainly French.
Yes, classical.
Yes.
I guess in a way to be somewhere on the safe side maybe, but when you know what you work with, it's more easily to adapt it to the local climate, to understand how to work with the grapes in a winery, and it's the first step. The next stage is definitely to go and plant more indigenous varieties born in Cyprus or Turkey or Greek Cyprus.
Yes.
But to add some interest and more flavor to our wine portfolio.
Okay, so do you think these varieties, I mean classical varieties from France, Bordeaux classics for example, so cold climate with those varieties are performing very well. In fact, while the climate is changing anyway. So do you think those varietals are very good, standing stronger and resistant to the weather conditions in Cyprus?
I guess what I like about being a grape grower as part of my winemaking career is that vine is a very highly adaptive plant, and it's amazing. You prune it that way, it reacts and gives you like an answer, and you do that one, it reacts and go that direction. So it's a constant dialogue between me and the vines. When we have once a year chance to change things, because you harvest, you produce the wine, you make your conclusions, and you can only, you know, fine tune it the following year. But as I said, vines are very, very highly responsive for the environment, and they're highly adaptive. So it's not, let's say, a plant that needs very specific, firm conditions that if you move right or left by inch, the product is ruined. So saying that, Cyprus is definitely a good place to grow grapes, as many other places. I think what as a wine producer and wine consumer of local wines, you need to understand a very crispy and light and you know, gooseberry Sauvignon Blanc, you should buy a New Zealand one.
Absolutely.
We are unable to produce this type of wine from Sauvignon Blanc grapes because it's not the climate that we have. I don't fight with the climate. I, you know, move with it. I do the best I can with the given environmental, I guess, conditions.
That's a very good philosophy. Yeah.
Listen, you can't find the weather. I think many people tried it before me. I'm, I guess, smart enough to say, okay, I'll just follow it.
Absolutely.
So our wines are definitely a reflection of the local terroir and of the weather. And they tell a story of what's going on here and not anywhere else. And that's the beauty of it. When you go to France, you see the French take of the same grape. When you come to Cyprus or to England or to Australia, as I mentioned, you have their own take on the same grape, and you can pick the differences in the glass when you consume the wine. And this is what's amazing about wines in my eyes, that each year and each plot and each region have a unique fingerprint. Absolutely. That cannot be mimicked or reproduced anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you like, let's take a look at your craft room. I mean, where you produce your real nice wines.
Where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
Of course, let's go.
Let's go for it. In the winery of Lin Gold. This is where she mastering her wine. So What is the styles of wine you're producing here from these wineries we have seen earlier?
So all our wine is dry wine. We do not practice any semi-dry or dessert wine yet. Our wines are based on portfolio of white, rosé and reds. And then it's going into 4 different levels. We have an entry level, then we have mid-level, upper, and a flagship wine that produced only in a very, very good years that we actually excel to achieve very interesting results in
Which
vineyards.
is ageable.
Yeah. It's a long living wine that, as I said, produced only in excellent years.
Produced from Cabernet Sauvignon or Shiraz?
Usually Syrah and Petit Verdot, maybe some Cabernet Sauvignon backbone, but it's a very powerful and generous, chewy
Again,
wine.
classic.
Yeah.
One of the classic. That's really excited for me actually to drink a wine which is ageable in northern part of Cyprus from a professional winemaker. It's really nice and excited.
Thank you.
What is the general, hectoliter that you are producing here overall? Approximately a year from those wineries.
We're growing about 40 dunam under vine, so that's producing about 20,000 bottles a year annually, 20-25. Again, as I mentioned, we are a boutique winery focused on quality and not quantity. So when you take the vineyard capacity, you can produce much more. I wouldn't say twice as much, but you can produce definitely more. We are always looking after the balance of superior product, very focused on quality, very intense flavors, and then we basically balance the vineyard yield, and then we choose only, let's say, the free run out of the press and only upper level wine that we can take from the production process.
Very good. Okay, so I'm excited about tasting a wine in your where is the barrels are actually. Let's go there and have a look what is happening there.
Come after?
Yep. We are at the basement, which is very cold here, and which is a must for the barrels to keep them here healthy. So we are going to drink and taste one of the Lin Gold's, Winemaker Lin Gold's wine. So what is it we are going to taste here now?
So we're actually tasting a very exciting wine for me. It's called Primus, and it's the first red wine produced here from our own grown varieties. Why it's so exciting? Obviously, for some people, they will say, okay, you're a winery producing wine, of course it's grown here. Well, what's the catch? Why are you so excited about it? So the thing is that from the moment you have an idea of planting a vineyard and you actually go and find a good, healthy and suitable material to plant, and you import it to the country, and then you plant it, and then you wait for a few good years until you can actually harvest it, until it's good enough material to be wine product supportive, let's say. We're talking about 4-5 years sometimes. So it is a very, I'm working on this wine from 2017, but to reach a point that I can share it with everyone and taste it with other people and see people actually buying it and consuming it, for a winemaker, it's like, let's say, an author who writing to the drawer. Nobody reads whatever you write, so it's very frustrating. So as a winemaker, I always look for the point that we start to sell the wine and I can get some feedback and consume it with our guests and friends. So we are very, very excited about this one. It's just about to be launched the coming months, I believe, at the end of the month. So I'm happy to drink it with you. Cheers.
Cheers. Absolutely brilliant. So we are standing in front of the barrels. Where are the barrels coming from, and what is it made of, and what effects does it to the wine during aging?
Okay, so I think wine barrel, it's one of the most popular icons in winemaking world. The barrels coming from, those are French oak barrels. They obviously coming from oak tree. But whoever visited or planning to go to a Tuileries in France, it's a very, very particular, meticulous process of growing the oak and selecting the wood. The wood is sold by auctions. Like, it's a whole crazy world about the wood that's coming to combine those barrels at the end. Each Tuileries, each craft place that building those barrels, they have their own, let's say, secret, what kind of wood they use, for how long it's matured, the porosity of it. It's a whole another profession within winemaking is about the wooden barrels. Each barrel, the barrels that we use, those are 300 liters, because I believe on using the barrels slightly larger than the classical one, which is 225 liters, because I want a nice balance of the wine and the wood ratio, so how much wood is actually touching how many liters of wine. All our reds are matured in oak barrels, but the choice of the barrels is very fruit respectful. So the idea that the barrel, what it gives us basically in wine production is few things. It's a vessel to keep the wine, so it's more logistic, less sexy side of the barrel.
Yes.
But it gives us also micro-oxygenation, so it's a very, very controlled oxygen aging of the wine. During that process, basically, all the good things, all the tannins, all the color, all the phenolic compounds in the wine react between them and with the penetrating oxygen, and basically this is what differs the young wines from more aged ones in terms of structure and drinking readiness, let's say. Another thing it does, it basically releases some additional compounds that coming from the wood, that this wood in the factory, it's actually it's treated in a way that it's heated and toasted. So it's treated in a way that the barrel will release those compounds into a wine gradually. So new oak will release much more than second or third year used oak, just like a tea bag. Imagine tea bag that you're putting in a cup of with hot water. Yeah. So the second use of it, you'll extract much less.
It'll get poorer.
Yeah. So that's an interesting balance of how many liters going into which oak, what year of the oak. It's endless pool of options, endless pool of producers of the oak, and each one is having a unique, I guess, input into the wine. And as a winemaker, my idea, or my job is to go to the vineyard, to see the grape, to taste the grape, and imagine where in that truck I want to put them at the end of the day when they become fully ready wine for drinking. So every decision starting from the vineyard, in the winery, through the production, and of course the aging will impact the final product.
Absolutely wonderful. Okay, I really, well, we are in northern Cyprus, where wine culture has been disappeared a little while the wine culture was still increasing in the southern part of Cyprus. I don't want to go into the political issues, but it's really good to see such an investment bringing different scale with a winemaker, professional winemaker, with this infrastructure here, and produce wine in Cyprus, northern part of Cyprus, and then it brings out a very good quality wines, which is a Cyprus wine, and it is really appreciable to drink a really nice wine from Winemaker Lin Gold. So I like to congratulate
Thank you so
her
much.
with her, and thanks to her all efforts of making these wines. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not
fun.
It's fun, definitely. It sounds romantic, but at the background it has a lot of work. A lot of work. Well,
Yes. Thank you so much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.